Hi there, guys. Right Stuff Review number 2 for the 2023 season coming at you fast. This is the Retro RC kit this time around. We're going to open it up and find out what's inside. We have already done the lasercutplanes.com box concerto. Sorry, that name confuses me, but anyway. And so now we're doing the next airplane in the installment, and so this is the 2023 Cloud Dancer. This, I think, is probably the most innovative kit of the season. Mark Freyland likes having fun with creative aeronautical design, and I think this one is going to set a new standard for creative stuff in a Science Olympiad kit. So without further ado, let's open it up and find out what's inside. So we open it up. Nice packaging, packing list. And the goodies are actually somewhat separated inside of here. So get all the parts and pieces out. This is packaged very differently from what I'm used to seeing. So, 2 indoor free flight supply propellers, veggie bag material, 1 packet of rubber. This is a nice touch, a emery board sanding block. These are pretty cool. I like this one. 3D printed wingtips and fins. A variety of little smaller fittings here, including some fairly stout Delrin parts that I'll have to learn how to use. All of the laser cut wood parts and the carbon are in this little baggie. This is a "You should join NIFAS," and you should. Now for paperwork, there are several sections of paperwork. There's a sample flight log. There's the instruction manual for the airplane itself. And lastly, there is a plans packet. It's important to note that the plans packet comes in a couple different pieces and parts. And some of it appears to be full scale, some of it is partial, something of that nature. And of course all the parts. Here we go. There is your template for actually building things on. Until already fairly small wood sizes, so bear all of that in mind. So lots of interesting little tidbits. So with that, we're going to jump into building it. I'm going to come back once I have familiarized myself with the instructions that are contained here, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, so what we're going to do is we're going to build the Division C version of this airplane. We are not going to build the Division B. The Division B is a very easy airplane to fly, indeed, based on everything I can tell from what I've seen. The Division C airplanes, being shorter, are a little more difficult, so that's why we are going to build the Division C airplane, which frankly is not as pretty, but it's still very cool. And we're going to use that as our standard by which we'll judge performance. Now some of you may ask, but you built the Division B laser cut planes kit. That's because that's the only one that was available at the time. That has changed. I have the Division C airplane on order right now, and as soon as it arrives, I'll build it, so we'll have it as well. But the bottom line is The Division C or version of this airplane is very short, very close coupled. I don't completely agree with all of the instructions that he has on it, but we're going to build it per the instructions, and then I'm going to point out what should have been done differently that would, in my opinion, make it a better airplane. It'll still be a nice airplane. We're going to have fun with it. It's cool. It's going to set the standard for what kind of gadgets are on your airplanes from this point forward, I think. So, there we go. Alright, so we're going to start by building the wing. This is very similar to any of your other laser cut style airplanes. The one difference would be that the wingtip arrangement on this airplane, as far as how the spars are done, is actually very similar to how it is done on our kits, in that the ends are left open on these spars, and so they are left a little bit long, and that's to account to be able to for them to be able to lock into the actual wingtip assemblies. So I'm not going to belabor the point. I think most of you have seen how laser cut wings notch together at this point. This one is no different from any other. So we're going to come back once we've got the wing done and have proceeded on. I should mention it's got an arc airfoil, which is what's kind of popular on most of your Science Olympiad type kits. And so that's kind of what most people use. It works all right. It's reversible, so it takes care of that. The ribs, all the wood sizes are fairly sensible. This is a very lightly built airplane though, so at least in this area it is. The wing spars are extremely lightweight, almost too lightweight. So we'll see how that goes. Alright, so we have the wing done. We're going to go ahead and do the horizontal tail. Things to mention, this airplane, if you read the instructions, there is no reference to using this airplane for Division C. It simply speaks of a long model and a short model, both for Division B, as well as me breaking pieces because I am being a clumsy idiot. But we are going to build the airplane according to the short model instructions, and I'm not going to mix and match. Even though I really, really want to mix and match, because mixing and matching would make a better flying airplane. And let me get what I mean by mixing and matching. Retro RC tells you to shorten the horizontal tail if you're going to use the short fuselage arrangement. I, of course, object to this because I measure the behavior of airplanes based on something called the tail volume coefficient, and the tail volume coefficient is a measure of the stabilizer's, the horizontal tail's ability to dampen out oscillations and to prevent oscillations in the pitch axis. And that tail volume coefficient is a function of both the tail size and the tail moment arm, meaning the length of your fuselage behind the wing, relative to the wing area. So if you have a big horizontal tail and a short tail moment, that would give you a similar tail volume coefficient to a long tail moment and a small horizontal tail. In this case, what we are being told to do is to have a small horizontal tail on a short tail moment, which gives us a small, a very small tail volume coefficient and makes the airplane, in general, much more difficult to fly. Now I'm going to trim off these ends with a little bit of excess per the instructions. I am not going to put the diagonals in. They are listed as optional. I don't feel like putting them in, and they add weight. So, this is the horizontal tail that you are told to build to go with your short cloud dancer. Take that for what it's worth. Now, the instructions, and they do give you the gussets to do this, show how to make a covering frame to cover this aircraft. I am not going to make the covering frame. Instead, I am going to just use one of mine, and we're going to go from there. And I'm going to use my veggie bags rather than breaking the nice example veggie bag out of its thing, because I use the exact same veggie bags, and so it's all good. I will mention these printed tail fins do tend to warp a little bit if you're not careful. I mean, these are that way out of the package. They do have a little bit of flashing, so bear that in mind as well. So they are a little on the fragile side. They are also fairly lightweight, and they're skinny, which is a very, very nice combination, and I think it lends itself toward having a fairly high-performance airplane. Now, what I have discovered is that within certain ranges, it appears that any airplane that is decently designed is going to be able to get you 2 to 2.5 minutes. Possibly more, depending on which airplane you're working with. The bottom line is that as long as the airplane is stable enough to be flyable, it's going to be able to put in the times. So, for our purposes, these are all of the parts that you would cover with your veggie bag material to get your cloud dancer in the air. I should mention that the thing I have not mentioned so far, which is that the horizontal tail does not have an airfoil. It is a flat bottom tail. I've not dug into the instructions as to whether he recommends you cover on top or bottom. I think that it would probably, with such a short coupled setup, probably be easier to cover on the bottom, but we'll find out how all that goes in time. Here we have all of our parts laid out, 3N77'd up real good. And now, put the covering down on them. Hopefully I didn't get it too tight, because I don't want to warp anything, but there we are. And ready for everything to... Alright, so we have our flying surfaces here, and so the main thing is for the attachment on them, you have to bear in mind if you're using this shortened tail, that you have to clip off or hog out the excess here to get these to mount. And then they should latch right in. Now, one of the things I do notice very clearly is that the film itself, the tension in it can start to warp some of your flying surfaces, so bear that in mind. The fitment is a little awkward in a couple of places, and I'll give you an example of that right there. You can see how that's kind of curved out, and it doesn't really want to go away. So just bear that in mind, that there are some issues. This is the first kit I know of that has had 3D printed anything in it at this level, so the technology is going to have some teething issues in this application. And that being said, I don't think it's going to really interfere with the flyability of the airplane. What will interfere more is if we can't get good rudder adjustments on the plane. But you know, there you go. Pretty cool. We'll do the wing tips off camera. So the next thing we need to do is make the wing mounts. So the bases of the wing mounts are pine. Right here. You have to pay really, really close to orientation on everything, because this is not what I would call forgiving. Let's see, the front wing post is supposed to be 2 3/16 of an inch long. So this is the part where everything has to be done exactly. I think the wing post or wing mount assembly is a little overdone in a lot of ways on this airplane. There's a lot to it. I know the reason why it is so complex is to try to ensure that you get a consistent, reliable result. But goodness gracious, it's pretty wild. So we're gonna try. And the instructions, frankly, are a little confusing to me as to what order things are supposed to be done in. So that part has me a little confused as well. You know, you've got to figure out how far to stick everything out. So I think the way to do this is, first of all, to remember which one of these is the front, because the front one is supposed to be longer than the rear one. Bit of a tight fit, bear that in mind. So you slide this front one in and have it protruding 1 motor stick depth below. Then you come back to the rear post and you do the same exact thing. Those of you saying this is complicated, I have built several retro RC Science Olympiad planes, and every one of them has some very, very complex arrangement for the wing mount. So this one is no exception, and that's okay. You know, each kit has their distinctive. I think the distinctive on the retro RC kits is really over-engineered wing mounts. And for me, drips of CA on the table. Now we've got these upper wing mounts. I will say this is the lightest wing mount arrangement I've seen them produce. So, to me, that's important. Now I will mention I am building this so that the wing sits on the left side of the motor stick. I think that's where it ought to go. That's where I put mine always and forever. I'm not going to pop these alignment jigs out of their little sheet. Instead, I'm going to use them as they stand. And the reason for that is I'd like to preserve this kit for use in the future. Should I need it for reference or whatever. And so I'm screwing it up now. He says not to use CA on these, and I get the point. I use CA anyway because that's how I do business. But this is a reminder right here that you have to watch out what you're doing. So very nifty the way that this goes together. My one complaint is I have already had to sight down the carbon rods to ensure correct alignment of said rods, which to me says I'm not sure if this wing mount is really able to achieve its goal of getting everything lined up correctly. Go ahead and pop these guys out and a pair of gussets. Gussets do go in, and I don't know that based on where I am in the build process so far of gluing my hands to everything, I am not certain how much of this structure is really contributing to the performance of the airplane. So, I shouldn't even say performance, I should say buildability. I feel like it's a little on the overcomplicated side. Alright, so we do that, and then we have these two little guys that go on top. And see, this is where I start to have a little bit of an issue with the kit, in that I'm not seeing a lot of reference to wash in, wash out at this stage. The instructions don't really show pictures in here to dictate the alignment of the wing for proper wing twist. And so the problem that I see is that the purpose of this is to get the wing twist correct, but there's a lack of direction on how to actually accomplish that. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. Now, I cut those diagonals a little short. That's actually okay. But see, the thing is that you want to be able to sink everything down on here and then be able to line it up using these carbon fiber diagonals. But the problem, as I'm seeing it, is that they don't really provide a context for making sure it's all flat and whatnot. There is a way by which you could force that, and that would be to cut these carbon rods here flush with the top, and then you could lay this down and make sure that these two tabs are in plane, and then everything is great. If you don't do that, then it's kind of anybody's guess, and since this is a I will give it this is a very rigid wing attachment, you do run into the issue that changing your result might be a little on the difficult side. Because once it's there, it is definitely there. And so the intent after this is that you drop your wing on, and you've got those carbon pins front and back. You can leave them alone and just use that as alignment guide right there. And so this part of the wing mounting process, this is superb. The problem, as I have said, is now that this is on here, you don't get to change it. It is here to stay. That's not totally true. You can crack one of these diagonals loose and pull it in and out, and you can kind of force some wash in or wash out as needed. But there it is. I will say, I mean, you look at that, that is a really well-engineered wing mount as far as just how harmonious it is with itself to just lock in, and it's there. And somehow or another, because I have yet to read the full instructions on it, this locks onto the motor stick and just sits there and looks cool. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So in that regard, I really like that. I'm a little alarmed about how securely this is going to mount onto the fuselage, but I may just be completely wrong. Something else to note is the horizontal tail just kind of glues onto the bottom of the fuselage there. It has automatic incidents already cut in, as it should be. So before we attach all of that, I'm going to look at the next few steps, because I think probably before we attach all of that, we'll be installing the front end assembly, and we want to show some special attention to that because all right, so we have this Delrin sheet. We're going to pop one of the front end mounting assemblies out of here. This requires a little bit of encouragement. Let go. This is probably the most complex part of this kit. It is also one of the most highly innovative things in a Science Olympiad kit today. I don't know how much I totally endorse that, oh, it's the thing, but it is very cool. The biggest thing is this is, in my opinion, not beginner level because you have to clear out some flashing in it. This component is set up so you automatically have your left thrust dialed in. My one objection there is, of course, the part about, okay, what if you need to change your left thrust? But there it is. The precision with which this component lines up, as I saw this last year as well with the kits they were selling last year, the precision is not to be argued with. This is probably one of the more precise kits ever produced. Well, this series, I should say. The Retro RC kits are phenomenally precise. I think they and Stevens Aero are probably the two highest precision balsa kit makers in the world, because everything is toleranced. I know Stevens Aero actually tolerances per batch of balsa. But anyway, there is your mounting assembly for the propeller. And then the propeller is going to be able to notch into this. And it'll fit in. And it slides in place and it's locked in there. And what's cool about that is you can slide it forward and drop it out. Just like that. Removable propeller. I think it's pretty cool. I'm a little concerned about flexure in it, although it feels pretty solid. So take that for what it's worth. The horizontal tail is attached with the covering in the up orientation. I still have my doubts about that, but we're going to try it. It does tell you to secure it with a little bit of left rudder adjustment in there. Also says to attach the rudder with, the horizontal tail, I should say, with Duco for the purpose of being able to adjust your rudder trim at a later time. I am just going to go ahead and CA my tail in place, and I'll adjust as needed later, but I think it'll be okay. So with that, this is kind of what your airplane ends up looking like. A little odd. We'll see how this goes. We're going to have to get a scale, we're going to have to weigh it, and proceed from there. Alright, so we have the airplane put together. The instructions say to tape the wing, and as best as I can tell, that seems to keep things pretty secure. I have balanced the wing per the airplane per the plans, so they show the center of gravity for the short model to be 1.8 inches behind the wing leading edge, which that's that's pretty far forward CG. but you have to bear in mind the horizontal tail is very small. You balance the airplane with a rubber band or rubber motor installed that is a regulation weight 2-gram motor, and so you have to operate on that. So let's find out the question of what does it weigh? To stay put here if possible. There we go. Okay, this airplane is ridiculously light in this configuration at only 6.3 grams, so it is way, way underweight. Now I admit that by having the longer tail assembly, you would gain a little bit of weight, but not that much. If you look at the amount of clay I am putting on this airplane to get it up to 8 grams, some of that could have been used on wing spars. Just saying. There we go. And so we'll install this gigantic glob of clay right here at the CG. Now, if you were wanting to do this truly right, you would take the clay, you would put it up here on the nose, rebalance the airplane, slide the wing forward so you get a little bit more tail moment. But that's what we're going to do for now, just to see how the airplane performs. So, Retro RC Cloud Dancer, we're going to load the rubber motor back on the airplane, and then we will go from there. So let's see how it glides. Not half bad. All right, so we have a few turns on the motor. I keep feeling like the prop shaft has bent a little bit, but there we go. So let's see what it does. All right. Don't really have much of a climb going there. It's acting, frankly, a little underpowered, but also I need to balance the propeller because it's shaking like crazy. Okay, so this propeller has become deformed a little bit. I believe that is the cause of the problem. So if you look at this blade, you can see there's very little curvature, whereas there's plenty on this one. And what that means is that under load, this blade is flexing severely. So we're going to try and curl the blade a little bit. Because I checked the balance, and the balance seems about right. Alright, so let's try that. Much better. Now we just got to get it to climb and to turn. Alright, a little bit more left rudder, a little more torque. And look at that, it's starting to come around. There you have it. A little bit of left thrust. I actually took out the rudder trim to be able to turn in here because I needed some opposite rudder, or at least neutral rudder, to keep the airplane from spiraling in under power. And I did have to add quite a bit of wash-in on the left side. You would not normally have to do that, but I'm flying in a very tight space, so those are the trim adjustments that you need. All right, so there we go, the Retro RC Sky Dancer. Very nice little airplane. As you can see, we got it fly in the living room. It does not fly particularly long. You wind it up, it runs out of torque to maintain altitude fairly quickly. Now, I suspect opening up the turn, you'll see a little bit of improvement in performance. But I will say, in terms of performance, I am a little disappointed. I don't think it's delivering quite what it could. On the other hand, it does fly very well. So other than that propeller vibration issue, which is something you have to keep close track on with some of these propellers, there have been some issues related to that. But as long as you keep track of that, the airplane flies well. I don't see any stability problems with it. It's a little odd with the small tail. Again, this is what you would use for a Division C entry. For Division B, you would not have that problem. The airplane would probably require less power to fly as well. So some things there. Probably my biggest issue is this amount of clay is indicative of the airplane being underweight somewhere in its structure. And that location is the wing spars. They are very, very, very flexible. And I think any hard hits and they're going to start breaking. They are just built too light, quite simply. If you're a fairly experienced flyer, you're going to not have an issue with that. But my concern is most of the people buying this airplane are going to be less experienced, and so they're going to be spending a lot of time repairing that wing. The wing needs to be stronger, quite simply. Other than that, very cool airplane. As always, Retro RC turns out a very nifty, innovative product. They've come up with some new innovations this time. I wasn't sold on that wing mount at first. I kind of like it now. So this hat trick, I think, really drives home what their kits are about, and 3D printed wingtips and all of that. Very cool airplane. You should try it out because it's cool and you should try it out. And that's my opinion on that. So we'll see you on the next one. Hi, I'm Josh Finn. This is Hope. We are J&H Aerospace.
If you like this video, hit the like button.
Also, how about subscribe to our channel and check out jhaerospace.com for new free flight products and all of the tooling that you'll need to build them.
Thanks for watching.